things they forgot in Red Dead Redemption 2 that we need in Red Dead Redemption 3. So I've decided to put this list together. All right, we've got 9 things in this video that I'm going to discuss. Let's start. A manage your own game mechanic. So I really like the idea of like, in Red Dead Redemption 3, we have a gang, sort of like a game system where like the protagonist can form their own gang and sort of have like this recruiting system where you can pick from an allotted type of NPCs. Maybe there's a specific bank job that you want to do. Player might have the option to choose between 3 different recruits. Maybe one guy is really good at blowing stuff up, or maybe another guy is really good at cracking saves, or maybe someone else is just really good at charming people. I would like to have something like that. And perhaps even with the gangs, you could have a system where you could level up your gang by doing upgrades similar to camp upgrades, but making them more extensive. Now, the second thing that I would like to see in Red Dead Redemption 3 that I think they forgot would be pardon letters. If you don't know what pardon letters are, there are these things from Red Dead Redemption 1 where you would just have to give it to the mailman and he would pay off your bounty for free. I thought this was one of the coolest things in Red Dead Redemption 1, and it was so weird how they just completely scrapped it in Red Dead Redemption 2. Like, I get it doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of a realism perspective, but I think it's a really, like, you don't have to make it super common. Like, you could make it a very rare item, and like perhaps you have to kill a lot of people to get it, or look for it inside a treasure map chase or something. I'm not saying you have to make it easy, but I do think this is something that a lot of players sorely missed. Number 3, buying properties and managing them. Another issue I have with Red Dead 2 is that there's just not enough stuff in the game the player can really buy. Like, yeah, you've got your horses, you've got guns and all that stuff, but beyond that, you might very easily find out that there's not a lot of stuff left to spend with. I've had experience, during my own live streams where I will literally run out of stuff to spend and I'll be like, what am I supposed to do? So I'm thinking they should add like properties, like homes that the player can buy that they can stay in, like you can in GTA. And maybe even like you could buy a ranch. You could manage a ranch. You could like hire like people to run the ranch. You could collect proceeds from like any profits the ranch might have. Perhaps even like delving into illegal operations like a moonshine operation. Like they kind of dabble with that in Red Dead Online, but to see that in the story mode, I think would be very cool. Now, next up, I want to see 3 different protagonists in Red Dead 3, similar to GTA 5. I did love Arthur Morgan. I think he's one of the greatest protagonists of all time. Okay, like nobody loves more than I do. But I do think to spice the Red Dead series up, we should have 3 protagonists in the next game. There's a lot of opportunity for us to experience a variety of different outlaws that way. Maybe we could even play as a sheriff. Maybe you could switch the tables. Like you could have 2 characters who are outlaws, but then switch it up and have a 3rd character that's a sheriff. I might get flamed for this idea, but I actually think that might give you a really interesting perspective. I mean, the Wild West wasn't all just outlaws. There were sheriffs and people too. I think it's just the best way to make the experience as widely inclusive as possible. Like, you could have 3 different characters that could relate to a lot more people than have like one character who might not be as overall relatable. Now, the next thing I want added that they forgot is an actual extensive fist fighting system. The fist fighting in Red Dead Redemption 2 is pretty barren, to be honest. Like it's fun, it's engaging, but it gets boring pretty quickly. It's way too easy. First of all, second of all, the fighting does feel really clunky and slow, and some people might like that. They might think, it's realistic and that's what makes it fun. But I don't know. I think, would it really kill Arthur to like be able to like do like a little bit of a karate kick or something? Like, I want to do some karate. Why not do something like that? Like, let me learn some moves or something. Like, it doesn't even have to be like karate stuff. Like, it could be stuff that a cowboy would know. Like, I don't know, maybe like some dirty fighting moves, like an elbow to the head or like a headbutt move. Like, there is some headbutting in the game, but it's like random out, or maybe even like a ball kicking method, like where you kick somebody in the nuts on purpose. Like, all I'm saying is like cowboys should be able to fight dirty, and I think dirty on command. And I think that was a wasted opportunity. Number 6, more creative missions. Now this has to be, I think, my biggest criticism with Red Dead Redemption 2, and I sincerely hope Rockstar fixes it. The missions are just so straightforward in terms of gameplay. Like, they're fun, but at the end of the day, especially you really notice it on replays, you're just like pointing and shooting, clicking the same buttons. There isn't a lot of different ways that you can go about missions for the most part. It's always a straightforward thing. Anytime that I or like, you know, any players try to get creative and maybe try to solve the mission in a different way, usually the, you know, mission will just fail, which I think is really lame. There should be some room for a player to like be more creative with how they want to do things. You know, there are some glimpses of it. Like for example, in that one mission, Arthur and Lenny are attacking Shady Belle. You do have like a couple different options to attack Shady Belle. You know, something like that, except like that shouldn't be like something that only happens like maybe once or twice in the story. That should be something that happens every single mission almost. All right, now better gambling. So gambling in this game, honestly, not the best, okay? Obviously, you've got some fun games. You got your poker, your five-finger fillet, some blackjack and stuff. But first of all, the stakes are way too low. The only way that I can make it expenseful for myself is if I install some mods or something up the stakes of how much money you actually bet with, because in the in-game mode, the most you can bet is like $5. Like, that is actually so pathetic. Also, they left out some really cool gambling missions that were present in the first Red Dead, like Liar's Dice, which I think, like, you know, that was one of my favorite from the first game. Totally forgot about that. And, you know, maybe even add some newer stuff. Like, I don't know, maybe you can do some gambling like horse racing. Or holy crap, how does a game like Red Dead not have horse racing as a gambling option? Like, that's the dumbest thing ever. You know, I think the gambling could be way better. And I'm just hoping that somebody from Rockstar maybe watches this. Okay, now the next thing, story DLC. Now this is definitely never ever going to happen. I mean, I can dream. I'm a dreamer. I like to dream. Who knows, maybe. But I think having an Undead Nightmare 3 for Red Dead Redemption 3, I mean, that was one of the best video game DLCs that have ever been made in the history of gaming, hands down. They should definitely include story mode, single player DLCs for Red Dead 3. They didn't do anything for Red Dead 2. Just such a shame. At least something for the online, at least. Just Undead Nightmare 3, even if it's online, just please add it to the game. We're so starved for some DLC. For Red Dead 2, they could have made like a DLC where it expanded more on the Arthur and Mary relationship. I thought that would have been really cool. And now for the last thing I'm going to be talking about today, a wanted system that actually makes sense. Okay, they completely dropped the ball here. The wanted system is okay, all right, but I think they really just forgot a lot of crucial things. Take this scenario and tell me if it makes sense. You rob a train in the middle of nowhere, okay? And then 5 seconds after you start robbing it, the cops are on you. Like, the year is 18 something. How do they call the cops? Like, they don't have cell phones back then. Are you telling me that the dude at the back of the train like sent the fastest raven in the history of ever to the nearest town, and then the cops suddenly know and they show up 5 minutes later? It doesn't make any sense. So I'm hoping that they include a wanted system that really just has proper reaction times, especially if this game is going to be taking place before 1899, which is what I hope. I hope it's not a game that takes place later than 1899, because then it's not really a Wild West story anymore, just saying. So yeah, that is pretty much everything I have to say. You know, they forgot in Red Dead 2, but they add in Red Dead 3. There's definitely a lot of stuff. Who knows, maybe this video needs a part 2, but you can just comment that down below if you think so.